Okay. Now, supposedly we're streaming.
We're probably live.
But then I need to come in here and say, hey,
Start saying it's your stream.
I did. I thought I did. Streaming. Okay. I think that's right.
Possibly. Home videos. Live.
Yeah, it says on here that it's live now.
Okay, well.
Visibility
Oh.
private?
It's, members, right? Do we
Yeah,
have to set it to members?
Should be.
So, is there, if you go private, is
But
there a way to change
no,
it
this
to
is just like
members
public.
only?
Oh, yeah.
And then platinum. Done.
I don't remember doing that
Save.
before.
Okay. Maybe that's why it was on delay. Let's see. Is anybody there? Hello?
Is anybody out there? Hello, hello, hello. Is there anybody in there?
Oh, yeah. What a great song.
Just not if you can hear me.
Is there anyone at all? No.
Dang it.
I don't know. If you can hear us, say something.
But we won't be able to see that you're saying anything.
No, that's true.
Say something in the Discord. I don't know why this is always
So difficult.
so difficult. You wouldn't think it would be difficult, but it is.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
here to tell you that it's difficult. And you're still not seeing anything show up on your notifications.
I think it's here. Okay.
Oh,
Wait.
oh.
I think we're live. We've been live. We're just sitting here rambling. It's loading.
Maybe.
There we go.
All right.
Hey, somebody said, hey guys.
Sweet.
Hello. We're alive. There we go. We can hear the serenade. Okay, so they heard us. They heard us singing.
Okay, good.
We're probably on delay, so sorry.
Whew. All right, now the question is, how's the volume? I feel like oftentimes that's an issue.
Yeah. How are we on sound? Let us know. We got the chat ready.
Is anybody too quiet, too loud? We'll talk about stuff while you guys let us know.
Okay, so
what's new in nerddom? It's been a minute because you've been on vacation. I'm about to go on vacation. Yeah. You were in Disney.
What have we not? You know what we haven't talked about? We haven't really followed up on Avatar. We talked about like how excited we were for it, and then I think we kind of all went our separate ways to watch it. And I don't know if we ever had like a post-mortem.
Yeah. Will you give me your thoughts?
I'll give you a number out of 10. How about that? 6.5, 7.
Okay.
Maybe somewhere in that
I was going to say 7, maybe 7.5.
Okay.
So we're probably
Pretty
about
similar.
on the same page.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things I liked about it.
Yeah.
The bending generally looked pretty cool.
Looked great.
They did a pretty good job, I thought, of hitting most of the important story beats from season 1. It's tough when you got to cram 20-something episodes into 8 episodes, even though they're an hour long. Some of the acting was really good, and some of the CGI and effects were good, and then some not so great, and
oftentimes
some
in the same episode.
Not so great. Yeah. It's tough anytime you're dealing with child actors. I think
Right.
it's just there. there are so very few like Haley Joel Osmonts of the world. You know what I mean? Where like as a kid, and I mean I can't imagine being 10 or 12 or whatever and having to like act and not be like, I'm acting, you know what I mean? And that just really comes through, I think, especially with kid actors. And you can almost see them like looking at the director and being like, is this,
you want me to do this?
Is this right? Is this how you're supposed to do it? You know, and not like actually embodying the character. And that's so hard.
I mean, so much of acting is like experiences that you've had that you're now drawing upon to bring in. And like, how many experiences has a 10-year-old had compared to, you know, like Leonardo DiCaprio or something, right? Like, it's completely different. So it's kind of hard, but yeah, I'd agree. I think for the most part, the kid actors were good.
Yeah.
And they kind of grew on me as it went.
Sure.
Maybe initially I was like, oh, great, we're in for it.
And some were better than others. I thought Sokka
was awesome.
Perfect, right? Really, really good. And Zuko was pretty good. He had times where maybe less so, but then you don't know, is that the script? Is that the directing?
Right.
You know, I don't know. But yeah, Aang was maybe the most problematic, I would say. Like, again, he's the youngest, and he's supposed to be this, like, carefree, kind of happy-go-lucky, but, like, with, like, but really he's, like, repressing, like, some trauma. And, man, how do you get that out of a 10-year-old, you know what I mean, in a way that doesn't feel a little staged, a little static?
Sure.
I don't know. What are we getting any comments on sound?
So let's say, yeah, it was all right. I wish they decided to do a different story in the world. Yeah, I think that could have been good. We got Hey Dudes. Let's see. HGO makes Kingdom Hearts come alive. Awesome that he continued as an adult voice actor too. Sure.
I never played Kingdom Hearts. Sorry.
Yeah, I feel like when that was popular, I was not really into video games as much as I am now.
Yeah.
Like, I was aware of them and, like, played Pokemon and, like, whatever here and there.
Probably for a different reason, I was in the same place. But it's because I was in, like, my early 20s. Yeah. And, like, newly married and trying to get through grad school. And, like, I just didn't have time for video games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I was trying to make the high school football teams.
Yeah. The only game that I played then was like StarCraft.
Oh, yeah.
And I played it a lot. And then I started to get into, like, that was actually the dawn of my PC gaming life. StarCraft and Civ 2 were the things that got me, like, I, like, don't want to play, like, why will I'm never going to play a game on a console again. Yeah. Because this is, like, there's so much more that you can do with a keyboard and a mouse as far as, like, I don't know, whatever. I'm less an elitist now than I used to be, but I'm still kind of an elitist.
I have both, and I can honestly say, like, it depends on the game.
Sure.
Right? Like, depends on how it was built from the ground up.
Yeah.
Like, some games are just so much better mouse and keyboard. Like, I would argue that if you play Baldur's Gate 3 on console, fine. Like, good for, you know, giving money to Larian, but you're getting the suboptimal experience. It just is the way that it is.
Yeah. And then I discovered, it was about that time that I discovered Knights of the Old Republic. But I think I came to that via Baldur's Gate 2, because those were both BioWare games. Oh, yeah. And so I played Baldur's Gate 2. I'm like, oh my gosh, D&D, like I can get my D&D fix, you know? Loved it. Neverwinter Nights, and then Knights of the Old Republic, and I was like, okay, this is like the pinnacle of gaming as far as I'm concerned. Like the way that they could, kombucha, it's fizzy. Sorry,
it's healthy for you guys.
The way that they, we could talk about my colonoscopy if we want to talk about guts. Sorry, now we're going way off script. The way that that game in particular, Knights of the Old Republic. Come on, Saggy Mike.
It's always the saggy mic.
Mike.
It's always in the outtakes every week.
Oh, the one that I did this week, it was. How can I not make this a penis joke? It was trying to, like, rise up all the time. So it wasn't saggy. It was like it was horny. Yeah, it was a horny mic. It was like I kept, like, creeping into the screen, and I'm like down. I'm like, down, boy. Okay.
While you're thinking, in the chat, they're saying, yes, agreed, certain games need controllers and keyboard. That's right. Grad school. What is the school of the YouTuber? What'd you go to school for?
Let me finish my thought. Knights of the Old Republic, one of the greatest games of all time, became like showed that games could be like cinematic.
Oh yeah.
And like games at the same time, and was so in love with that game.
It put BioWare on the map, I think, like in a way that they hadn't been before.
As good as previous stuff was. Definitely. Okay, let's see. I did my undergrad in English literature, English, at the University of Utah, here in Salt Lake City. And then I did a master's degree there as well in British and American literature. And I was planning on getting a PhD and becoming like a tenure track professor.
I mean, you're kind of still a professor, just a professor of D&D.
That's how I scratch my teaching itch for sure.
Like, let me teach you how to be not so bad at D&D.
Or just to, incorporate all of the potential mechanics into like a concept. Anyways, what was I going to say? Yeah, I was going to get a PhD, do the whole tenure track professor thing, and then I got offered a job by my brother to work at the company where we met. Finance company, basically.
Boring,
credit card processing, merchant services, where I was for 17 years, until just a couple of years ago when the YouTube was enough that I could kind of quit that job, which was awesome. So thanks largely to you guys. I put that master's in English to great use. I mean, you can always benefit from increased communication and analytical skills, I suppose.
I feel like whatever you get your degree in, like, unless it's like a doctor or like, dentist, whatever, where it's very specific, I feel like just getting a degree just kind of gets your foot in the door. And then from there, you just kind of use the skills you picked up along the way and figure it out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily benefit from being able to do a great, like, deep reading of, like, 19th century American literature.
We need to change that. Maybe that's the next channel. Putting that to good
I'd love to, like, break down Thoreau and Emerson. Although then it would become apparent what a hack I was, and, real scholars would be like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Yeah.
Real scholars on YouTube? I don't think that's a thing.
Yeah, they probably exist.
Yeah. Okay, we've got loved the original SS1 Gold Box games, and was there for Baldur's Gate 1 with my gaming group. We also played the OG Neverwinter Nights on AOL. AOL, that's a blast from the past.
Yeah, I played Neverwinter Nights. I don't know if I ever played 2. I remember it coming out, and I think I was probably into World of Warcraft at the time, which sort of consumed all of my gaming hours and lots of my sleep hours as well.
All right, if you had to put a guess on what the hours are spent in WoW, without making you go pull up your Steam library, what would you think you put in?
It's not on Steam.
Oh, that's right.
I remember looking once and being mortified at because you could type in /played, I think, and it would give you. And it would give you in days and or months, I think. And I don't know. I played daily from probably 2005, 2006 to Cataclysm, whenever that was. That was the third expansion. And that's when I kind of burned out. I want to say it was 2010, 2011, so 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
I played pretty much every day. I was never in a raiding guild. It was we were pretty casual. Mm-hmm. We did in Wrath of the Lich King, for those who know. We had a pretty good consistent 10-man raid group, but I was mostly there for the PvP. Mm-hmm. And I would do battlegrounds and then especially arenas, and I got pretty good. I played a rogue. I didn't quite ever make Gladiator, which was the highest rank, but I got to Duelist, which is the second, and even that was really hard to get to. Anyways, it was a lot of fun, and I loved it. And I mean, I months. I think months worth. If you added up all of the hours together, I remember it being like in the months realm of like
just like I could be working for NASA had I dedicated this time.
Well, that's similar to Civilization. So I would say, okay, here's a question.
Okay.
Top 3 like games that you've put the most hours into, do you think? So mine's World of Warcraft first. I think second is probably League of Legends. I don't know that for sure, but if I had to guess, because I played League pretty consistently too for years, like pretty much every day for years. But third is for sure, and maybe second is the Civilization games. If you could combine all the Civilization games, because like I looked the other day, that is one thing that I can see on Steam, and Civ 6 I have about 800 hours into. Civ 5 I have about 800 hours into, and I probably have the same amount in 4, maybe a little less in 3, and definitely less in 2. But yeah, so I mean, all together it's probably 2,500 hours into Civilization games.
So I'm not not that I get burned out with games necessarily, but like I kind of reach like a critical point where I'm like, okay, I think I've done everything. Yeah. I'm still love this game, but I'm ready to put this to bed.
You move on more quickly than I do.
Yeah, I don't linger in things.
Like, games get their hooks in me and don't let go for years.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard for me to say, like, which ones, but, like, the ones that jump out and come to mind, like, there's 2, and they're pretty recent, so, like, people are going to be like, you're not a real gamer, but Elden Ring, I have tons of hours in Elden Ring. But that's because you can, like, literally play the game with a different build, and it, like, vastly changes how you play it.
You'd think that I would be into it.
You'd think, but like I understand why you're not.
I don't like the challenge of like the twitchy. I don't want to say twitchy, but like I
knowing when to dodge versus when to like. Yeah,
I don't have a lot of like video game skill, or I may be used to. I would say like in my WoW days, like that required a fair amount of skill. Maybe not quite to the level of like Elden Ring, but it seemed to in PvP especially. Right. But okay, so Elden Ring.
So Elden Ring probably won, and then Ghost of Tsushima for whatever. When that came out, like I knew it was going to be good, but I don't think I knew quite how much it was going to like sink its hooks into me, and it like just gripped me. I probably have 3 or 4 playthroughs on that game.
That's the one that's getting a PC port.
Yeah,
and you keep telling me I need to check it out when it becomes available.
And what's funny is I think the common theme among all the games that really sink me in is that they're open world, but they don't do the stupid Assassin's Creed thing where you open it and then there's like a million question marks and you're just like, oh my gosh, look at all these chores I have to do.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Witcher 3 can be that way.
It can.
As much as I love that game, it's one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah.
But like, and the problem with Witcher 3 is like, that like most of those question marks are going to be like really interesting stories and like good, but you're just like but I can't, like I'm gonna get bored and I'm gonna quit the game before I finish it if I go off and try to be a completionist here.
Yeah. So those type of games typically kind of push me away, but the ones where it's like open world but it's like you find the quest, not like go to X marker right. It's like, hey, the quest will be so kind of generic. It's
like, just kind of organic.
This general cave is the thing you need, and then you just kind of explore and find it. And maybe that's why, because I just like exploring more than I like any other part of games. So that, and then Mass Effect has to be Mass Effect. I don't know how many playthroughs I've done, but man, I played through that trilogy 5 times maybe.
Yeah, I've definitely done. I'm trying to think. I've definitely done 4 playthroughs of the whole trilogy at least. I think I might have done 1 extra on just 3, or maybe it was 2 and 3. I don't know. Anyways, but I also really enjoyed Andromeda, and I'm like one of the few.
Yeah.
But I tend, and we might have talked about this before, I tend to be like an apologist when there's a like a world or
like an IP.
An IP that I really like. Star Wars, whatever. It's like I tend to have my rose-colored glasses on when I am evaluating a thing from like that IP, and I'm definitely that way with Mass Effect, which I think I would probably say is, if someone had a gun to my head and said, like, tell me your favorite game or I'm going to pull the trigger, I would probably say Mass Effect. If I could count all of them as one game.
One game, yeah.
That said, like, I've played, I mean, it's probably, I don't know, what would a playthrough from 1 to 3 take you? 50 hours? Is that too little?
I think maybe like 30 a game.
Okay.
Like 90?
No, more than 30. It would take me more than 30 anyways.
You think? Per game?
Yeah. Oh, well, maybe not.
I'm not sure.
Game.
I'm not sure. I could go look at my like Legendary Edition playthrough time. But,
okay, so call it 100 hours
20
for the trilogy.
Yeah, maybe 20 per game. I don't know.
Because I'm slow. I go slow a lot of the times.
Oh, I hate speedrunning games. Like,
yeah.
I love that people like that. Good for you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad. I am not the type like, I just want to experience the game. I just like turn it on. Don't tell me how to play.
Yeah.
Like, just let me figure it out. Let me die a whole bunch of times, and eventually I'll be like, okay, I got it.
I wonder how many hours I have in Mass Effect. If you count Andromeda, I'm probably 500.
Yeah.
Because I played through that twice, all the way through as well.
In the chat, we say, if a gun was placed in my head with that question, I'd get shot for saying too many different games.
Yeah. I don't know why I keep fixing the mic, because it's just going to drop again anyways.
Witcher 3 is a gargantuan amount of patience, but it's so worth it. It's true. It's one of the best games you can
play. In the chat right now, and
we're getting some.
I didn't mean to turn this into a video game exclusive thing, but I want to poll. I wish there was a way to do a poll.
Is there a poll option?
Team Yen or Team Triss?
Ooh, you're gonna cause some fights.
And if you say Yen, you're wrong. You're
no,
wrong.
If you say Triss, you're wrong.
Yen is not. That is not a healthy relationship.
It doesn't have to be. They're made for each other.
No,
Geralt doesn't deserve happiness the way that Triss provides. He deserves. Or Triss.
Emo.
He deserves her.
No. That's such a toxic
Someone
relationship.
Says Team Roach, and I agree. Just Geralt and Roach on the road. Nobody else.
Team Dandelion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Triss so much, and and I think the way you answer that question largely is going to come down to how did you discover the Witcher universe?
Yeah, because if you came from the book world.
No.
Oh, really?
I didn't. I came from the video game world. I think I could be wrong. This is what I need to take a poll on. I need to do some research. I need to get a grant. But anyways,
Witcher 3 grant.
Yeah. If you tend to be Team Yen, you more likely came to The Witcher from the books.
Okay.
Because in the books, Triss is a much more like minor player. She still has a pretty big role. She's kind of that older sister to Ciri, and she kind of makes a pass at Geralt, and supposedly they had a fling like at one point. That's never actually, you don't actually ever see that in the books. It's just sort of talked about.
Okay.
But she's rebuffed by Geralt. And he's like, no, I no. And she's all really sad about it, and it breaks my heart when I read it. Maybe that's why I didn't like the books, because I'm just like...
You're like, how dare you treat my one love this way?
But when you come from the games, I mean, like, Yen doesn't even show up until the third game, right? Yeah. And see, that's the thing. I'm convinced if you would have started playing The Witcher...
At game 1.
At game 1 or 2.
Instead of 3.
Where Triss is like the love interest, right?
Yeah, maybe so.
Then you didn't start playing until game 3, which in the very opening like cinematic,
you're chasing her.
Yen.
You're pining after your
exactly.
love. Okay, so we got a lot in the chat. So we've got a vote for Triss. We've got a vote for Yen all the way.
No way.
In the books, Team Yen. In the games, Triss. So we're tied. We've got a Yennefer. So we're tied. We're tied in the Triss. So, it's a 3v3. And then we've got one for Team Roach, which honestly is the right name.
I want to replay the games now. And here's the great tragedy about the Witcher games, in my opinion. like especially 3, but also I would say this about 2. I think 2 is a phenomenal game, and I want them to remake it so bad. But like the worst part of those games is the actual gameplay.
The combat.
Yeah, like I have no interest. I'll say this: I want to play the game like the developers want me to play the game.
Sure.
Meaning, I love the idea of like, okay, what do I need to be drink? Like which mutagens do I need to drink here? What do I need to? What oils do I need to put on my swords? What like stance do I need to be in? Which signs do I need to be using here? Right. And like dodging and weaving and using and all of that like sounds cool in theory, but in practice for me, and this is a great example of why I don't want to play Elden Ring. It's like it's too much. Like it's too stressful. Like I'm not good at it, right? And so like timing it when somebody comes up and you like dodge and then you pivot around them and you hit them and all that kind of stuff. It's like I just end up going, okay, like turn the difficulty all the way down and just like button mash, just like button mash until everybody's dead, because like it's like too much. I wish that they could improve the combat to be a little more. I don't want to say casual friendly, but maybe that's what I mean.
I think what would help, like if they really wanted to sink you into using the combat the way they intend it, and the way that it is in the books and the show and everything. I think what would be helpful is if you had, like, a companion or something who would feed you what you needed. Mm-hmm. Like, these oils are good for this enemy. And then you're like, thanks. And then you just use it real quick. Like, if you just had Dandelion in the back just tossing you stuff, like, then it might be a little bit easier to be like, they're weak against art. And you're like, oh, thanks.
It kind of ruins the lone wolf mythology or whatever. Fantasy, but I don't know.
Or maybe just Roach just like drops things for you and they're immediately useful to the situation.
Yeah, so that's what's crazy about those games when I think about it. It's like I don't even enjoy the combat. Like I'm just there like 100% for like the dialogue and the story. And it's like, wow, I can't believe that I think of this as one of the greatest games of all time, and like I hate the combat in it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like imagine if I loved the combat, then it would be like Mass Effect level. Yeah. Which there's a great example of like I love the combat in that game, and the story's fantastic.
Okay, so in the chat we've got, seeing how we're going on about The Witcher, what are your expectations for Witcher 4?
I have none.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish that they would still do a Geralt story, but I appreciate why that doesn't make a lot of sense. And so it's hard for me. I mean, I think my fear is that it's going to suffer the same thing that Andromeda suffered, which is like people are so invested in this universe, but the main reason they're invested in the universe is because of the characters that they've gotten to know and love, I think. And so to take that away is going to be like, I just don't care as much. Now, I think, is Ciri going to be
I don't know. I have not been like following up with it too much. Like the thing that's been on my radar lately is Dragon Age 5. That's the one that I'm kind of...
Isn't it 4?
Or, well, yeah, 4. Sorry.
Okay, I'm like, what? Sorry. Wait, did I miss a Dragon Age game?
There's a new one that nobody played. Yeah, 4. Sorry, Mass Effect 5.
The Wolf, Dreadwolf?
Dreadwolf. That one's supposedly coming out this year, so like that's been more on my radar.
Such a great series.
But if we're talking Witcher 4, I have pretty good faith that CD Projekt Red will deliver. And the reason I say that is when Cyberpunk came out, it was garbage, and they lost like all trust from the community. They fixed it, and they came back hard. And so I feel like if they are willing to put the time and effort and energy in, they'll probably make a good game. Yeah. The thing that worries me, though, is sometimes too much hype can be a bad thing. And people just blow their expectations out of the water, and then it's terrible. And it can never, ever live up to it. And that's my fear, I guess.
Yeah. All right. We should probably get to
about D&D, right?
And get to the questions that were submitted.
Okay, so we've got Rainy Yee VTube. How do you handle out-of-game personal issues between players if they bring animosity to the table? That's tough.
It's a good question. I don't know that we've experienced a lot of that.
I mean, we've had like minor disagreements
Sure.
on like specific things, like
Sure.
not anything that I would say would be detrimental to people playing together at
Yeah.
the same table.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I guess my answer to that is gonna be like general and applicable to like life, which is like talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, like, and that probably sounds pretty blasé, but like, yeah, I think at the end of the day, like just trying to be conflict avoidant
right.
and hoping that like it goes away, or just being like, well, I'm just gonna like suck it up. I mean, I guess my philosophy is this: like, understand that you have a choice, and like own your choice. You know what I mean? So the choices are, and maybe there's more than two, but the choices are live with it, you know, and just be like, okay, and again, like I would say this is applicable for all life, and especially in relationships, right? Like, like acknowledge, okay, like there's this conflict, and this thing that this person does bothers me, and I don't
Right.
like it, and I wish it would change. And so, okay, you have a choice. You can stay here and just like suck it up, but don't feel like, oh, like I'm a victim here. Like, man, like this could be better and it's not, and I'm like so frustrated by it. It's like, no, like you're actively choosing, I'm going to stay here because to me the pros outweigh the cons. Like the pros of
Right.
being able to game with my friends and enjoy this and blah blah blah, like are worth putting up with, you know, this person that I don't like, that I don't get along with, you know, etc. Or like that's one choice, right? Or like say, hey, like I feel like there's an issue here, we're having a conflict, like I want to talk about it. Maybe you start with your DM, unless your DM's the one that you're having the conflict with, but you know, hey, like, what do you think? I'm having this conflict. Like, maybe we can talk about it, blah, 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 get their help, get their feedback, get their opinion, idea. But ultimately, like, yeah, you got to, like, pull the person aside and say, hey, man, like, I feel like this is, like, making the game harder. And
Right.
I feel like when you do or say these things, like, this is how it kind of,
Right.
you know, affects me and how I feel and my ability to play. And, like, I probably do some things that annoy you. Like, can we come to terms here? And
Yeah.
and maybe, you know, but maybe not. And maybe it means like going your separate ways.
Right.
You leave the table, they leave the table, and that sucks. But like, just know that like, at the end of the day, I think you gotta own your choice and recognize that you have a choice and that you're making a choice. And that choice might be, you know what, like, I'm gonna stay here and I'm not gonna, because I don't think this person's gonna change, or I don't think it's gonna help. I think it'll just make it worse.
Right. But then at that point, though, it's like, don't let it absorb and control like all of your thoughts and energy and time. Just like let it go now.
Yep.
You've made your choice.
Yeah.
Time
Own
to
it.
just move on.
Yeah, own it, and I think it makes it easier then to, when something happens at the table that bothers you because the person, you go, yeah, like, that's how they are, or, you know, whatever, and yeah, like, I don't love it, but like, I still choose this.
This is why you've got to master the art of the, like, you have a friend and the other person does the thing and you just look at your friend with the... You just have to master the look, you know what I mean? Or like, you're out on a date with your wife and you see the thing and you kind of nudge them, and that means, hey, we're talking about this later.
Yeah.
Like, don't let that go.
Yeah.
Just remember that I reminded, like, bookmark this thing. I will deal with this later, but right now, I'm not going to let it bother me or affect me, and I'm going to have a great time.
And that might relieve a little bit of the pressure, not pressure, but like
Animosity,
frustration.
maybe,
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's great advice, not just for D&D, but just everything in life, like you said. Like, yeah, great answer. For a lighter question, what modules do you recommend for a new DM to start with to get their feet wet, or do you recommend they make their own homebrew one shot?
So, I don't know if I feel like we've maybe talked a little bit about this kind of idea before, but like, I'm one of those people who, like, I really like the official Wizards of the Coast adventures. Like, I love playing in homebrew worlds too.
Right.
But I guess I also kind of feel like, hey, like, you know, these writers that have written this module are like, they're professionals, and Like, there's a reason that they get paid to, like, create this content.
They went to school to the U and they got an English degree, and now they work.
and that's not to say that, like, they're all of equal merit and value and quality, right? I think some are better than others, clearly.
Like, everybody loves Strahd, and there's a reason why everybody loves Strahd.
And some are easier to run than others, and some are maybe a little more, like, new DM friendly than others. I personally would say, like, like, if you're a new DM, like, start with an existing, like, module. Homebrew, maybe start to sprinkle in your own homebrew into that existing thing. But I think it's just going to be a lot easier to help you kind of learn the ropes.
The world, like, part of what makes homebrew so appealing is you're like, I get to do my own pantheon and my own factions and all these cool things. But that's so much, like, energy and time. And I don't think a lot of DMs realize, like, if I'm going to have a good faction system, I need to put time and energy. I can't just be like, oh, the Thief Guild, like, people want to know, like, they have these inner,
what are the politics?
Interconnected, and they're fighting with this other faction. Why are they fighting with this other faction? The modules have all that done for you. You just have to know the story beats. Yeah. And when something branches a different way. And they're pretty clear, at least the newer ones, they give you almost like a flow chart of, like, okay, you do this, and then depending on what happens, you do this or this. Yeah. And then depending on what happens, you branch again, and you do this and this. And so they're just so much easier for DMs, I think, especially getting started.
As far as, like, favorites, that's kind of tough because we, all of that said, we haven't played a ton of, like, the existing, stuff. I know that it's not among the more popular modules, but I liked the Horde of the Dragon Queen.
I really did too, and maybe I'm partial because it was, like, my first 5e experience. But we also had a really great DM to help us through that, learning phase. Well, I wasn't really learning for you, but relearning or learning a new system.
I mean, it was because I was new to 5e.
Yeah, and I think we all were, and so kind of having this expectation that, like, we're all gonna kind of mess up a little bit, what made it a little easier. And then having a great DM that was just able to be like, just don't worry about it. Like, here's the story. Yeah. We'll learn as we go. When it comes up, then we'll talk about the mechanic.
I feel like it's probably a little more railroady than a lot of the other. Yeah. But again, for a new DM, I don't see that as a bad thing. Yes. And for new players too, just kind of having, like, okay, here's the story beats. You're going to do this, then you're going to go here, and you're going to do this, and you're going to talk to this guy, and then da da da. Now, that said, I do think Horde of the Dragon Queen is probably better than Rise of Tiamat, like part 2 of that module, right? Because it's kind of a two-parter. I think part 1 is a little, it's a little more, it feels a little more, like, concise and a little more directed. Yeah. Whereas sometimes the Rise of Tiamat can feel like there's, without too many spoilers, like, there's a big middle section of that module that's kind of like, it's a little nebulous and, like, what do we do? And, like, go here and come back and go here and come back and go here and come back.
Basically, without spoiling, you're kind of just trying to garner some favor from various NPCs. Yeah. And at least the way we played it. Right? Yeah. And so, it feels a little more nebulous and not, like, directly connected to the outcome of the story. And it's more just like, I'm just doing this so you have a session.
And yet, like, I think it would be unsatisfying to play one and not the other, and not finish the story. And it's great because it gets you to high level, and also, like, you just get a lot. It's just kind of a quintessential, like, you get a really nice introduction to the Sword Coast, to a lot of the Sword Coast. There's a lot of travel. You go to a lot of different places. I mean, Tiamat to me is like the quintessential villain of D&D, and you get introduced to, like, the important factions in the Sword Coast, and I don't know. To me, it's sort of like the sort of a quintessential Dungeons and Dragons, at least Sword Coast experience, and a great sort of, like, jumping off point, I think, for DMs and players alike who are new to D&D to kind of go, okay, like, this is the world, and now you can play just the Waterdeep stuff and really dive into Waterdeep, or, like, the Storm Giant stuff that's kind of more focused, or, like, the Icewind Dale, right? where you're almost taking
Like
now a more
location
deep
specific.
dive into like more of a location, which is cool. That said, Strahd is, I think, the best of the existing modules, so that's definitely somewhere you want to get to eventually if you're
Let's
doing
hop
official.
over to the chat real quick. We've got High Tech Wizard. There's really something satisfying with having a package story with a beginning, middle, and end rather than an open world of things that may or may not be experienced. And
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, especially from the player perspective, that you kind of always feel like you need to have a motivation and a connection to the story. And when it
Yeah.
starts to get nebulous, you're like, what are we doing? Why am I here?
Yeah.
Why does my character give a crap about this?
Yeah.
But when you've got just story beat after story beat that's driving towards an ending, it's a lot easier to get into.
And I think too, and we've probably talked about this before, but sometimes there can be a risk when you're doing homebrew to you as the DM have invested so much time and energy into creating this world, and that it can almost be a little more railroady in that you're
Right.
like, well, no, like this is important. My players need to experience this thing, and it's hard, I think, from a DM perspective, to not make the world that you've created, like, or the characters that you've created, or whatever, like the star of the show, or do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're so invested that and rightly so, that you want to like show off what you've done and you've spent all this time in. And that sometimes can probably be off-putting for players who are just like
I just want to play the game. And
yeah,
have a good time with my friends.
well, I don't want
Yeah.
to go experience this thing that you really want me to experience, that you spent all this time in. I want to kind of go this way, you know what I mean? And that can almost lead to greater conflict, whereas in an existing module, I think you might be a little less invested in whatever, and maybe therefore a little more willing to let your players kind of, go where they want to go. I don't know.
In the chat, we've got a handful of people saying, yeah, Tyranny of Dragons is great. Somebody's saying they're playing it right now and having a ton of fun.
Yeah.
We've got somebody else saying, though, it's kind of hard for DMs because it kind of lacks a connection to some things. And I could see that.
Especially
the
part
second
2.
part,
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have not everyone can be Matt Mercer. And that's true, too. Not everybody's Matt Mercer.
And you don't need to be.
Exactly.
Either.
You don't need to be.
Don't get me wrong, I'd love to play at Matt Mercer's table. And I think, to the extent that you can imitate the good stuff that he does, cool.
Right.
Elevate your game. But, yeah.
Right. Okay, so back over to the Discord questions from Arel. Hey there, Colby. Would an Echo Knight Swashbuckler multi-class be able to make 2 sneak attacks on their turn, combining the Echo Knight's Unleashed Incarnation and the Swashbuckler's Rockish Audacity ability? Now I gotta pull up
Okay,
things.
first of all, I mean, I think the quick answer is no, because you can't get sneak attack more than once on a turn. So you could never get sneak attack twice on your turn.
Right.
Now, whether you could do it twice in a round is a different question. Is Rakish Audacity the thing that lets you like move away without taking
I
an
believe
opportunity
so.
attack?
Yeah.
Sorry, now I'm going to be looking up stuff on the fly.
While you're looking it up, I'll just read some of the chats that have come in. With my homebrew world, I have a lot of ideas, but I simply create everything on the spot. I don't have anything that I'm dying for them to see because I haven't made it yet. And that's honestly a good approach of kind of just having more nebulous, and then as it becomes the thing that your players want to do, then you start to flesh that out.
Yeah.
That keeps you from making a whole world and then throwing it away and never seeing it, and that's a good approach.
Right. Okay, sorry. So back to the question. Yeah, this is just saying that you don't. Rakish Audacity is the thing that says you can use sneak attack, even if you don't have an ally standing next to your enemy, as long as it's just you and them. So when
like
you're
single,
kind of mano a mano. Yeah, again, like you could make an attack from your Echo's position, and for that matter, if your enemy moved away from not just you but your Echo, you could get an opportunity attack, and that would let you use sneak attack twice, which is cool. So yeah, there's definitely value, I think, to combining Echo Knight and Rogue, in that it'll it'll likely lead to more opportunity attacks and therefore a chance to use sneak attack twice in a round. And there's probably things you could do to, get an enemy to move away from the Echo or yourself. But yeah, I don't know that necessarily combining Swashy with Echo Knight is gonna do more for you as far as letting you get like the Swashbuckler subclass in particular. I don't think necessarily is going to let you get more opportunities at using sneak attack twice, unless I'm thinking like you're attacking them and then moving away, but they're still standing next to your Echo. Actually, that is kind of a thing, right? Like I could see that being pretty cool. Sorry, you guys are now seeing me like trying to create a character on the fly and optimize.
This is what they want. They want a video of you creating a character. It's just this, right?
Because it's like, yeah, totally. Because the cool thing about Swashbucklers, in my opinion, is that you can attack and move away without taking an opportunity attack, and thus, kind of force them, not force, but really encourage the enemy to sort of move on their turn. And so like if you hit them with Booming Blade, for example, they're going to take damage, or whatever. It helps you to stay safe, among other things. But yeah, if you've got your Echo, right? So now I need a map, but it's like you're standing here, your Echo standing next to them too, and the enemy's right here. Well, you attack them, and because you're a Swashbuckler, you can move away. And now they're like, well, I want to attack that guy still, so I got to move up to hit him. But as they do, they're moving away from your Echo, and you'd get an opportunity attack. That's really cool, actually. The downside, of course, is that, well, they might just turn and attack the Echo instead, because they don't want to take an opportunity attack. Your Echo's obnoxious. But that's not actually a downside. That's a great thing, because now they've wasted their action on taking out your Echo, and you can just summon it back with a bonus action. I'm getting a lot of comments. Sorry, now I'm going off on a tangent. I'm getting a lot of comments in my video from this week on the Echo Knight, because I'm saying like, is it overpowered? I don't know. It's really strong, but like maybe it's not overpowered. And then I do the numbers at level 6, and I'm like, holy shit, that is really strong. And anyways, but yeah, a lot of people are like, well, it's not the extra attacks that make Echo Knight OP. It's the fact that they can teleport ad nauseum, with almost no resource use, that they can constantly resummon the Echo. It should be, proficiency bonus times per day that they can summon it, or maybe that they could teleport, swap places with it. Which I get. And I probably should have, said that in the video. Anyways, yes, the Echo Knight is very strong. That would be really cool. And the fact that you could summon it back so easily might put the enemy in like this tough place where they're like, okay, I'm either going to take an opportunity attack or waste my turn killing this Echo that he's just going to summon back again on his next turn, right? Yeah. I like that idea. You know what?
Put that
excuse me for a moment while I add that to my
while you're doing that.
To my to-do list.
Thanks, Steven Saul, for the $100. Love the show.
Oh, thank you, Steve.
What are your thoughts on a Pact of the Tome Warlock and Scribes Wizard having two sentient books talking to them? From like a RP perspective, love the show. What are your thoughts on a Pact of the Tome Warlock and Scribes Wizard having two sentient books talk to them? I feel like there's a lot of roleplay opportunity there, and a lot of like you could really get in and like have one book pulling them one way and the Warlock thing pulling them in a different direction, and create this kind of like internal dichotomy in the character.
Read it one more time, because I was writing.
Sure.
And I'm really bad at multitasking.
What are your thoughts on a Pact of the Tome Warlock and Scribes Wizards having two sentient books talking to them?
That is a cool idea. I never use the Pact of the Tome. I always want to, and then ultimately I go, and I need to just like build around it. And that is something that I have on my to-do list, to like build around Pact of the Tome, because there are some cool things that it can do. Mostly like let you teleport to, whoever's, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm thinking in my head about Talisman. Tome is good, and I have used it a few times. And that gives you free cantrips, among other things. It is a fun idea. You're like the bookwormiest bookworm. You're like the nerdiest nerd of all time. who just like their only friends are their books, and their books like talk to them.
It could be really fun to play kind of a off the rocker type character where they're just muttering and everyone's like, what is going on?
Why are you talking
fully conversing with your book.
Nobody else knows that your books are sentient. I actually like that. That's how I would play that. And maybe they're actually not, but or like you're the only one who hears them or can talk to them. It'd be like Kaladin with Syl. I'm rereading.
Go grab it.
I get it because it's so good.
It's so beautiful.
I know. I keep gushing about this, and I even showed it in like the outtakes. Have you seen this yet?
Yeah.
I haven't. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
It's amazing.
Anyways, the Leatherbound of The Way of Kings. So I just finished volume 1, and now I'm well into volume 2 of it. And it's awesome. And that's kind of Kaladin. You know, he's crazy because he's always talking to Syl, and nobody else can hear or see her.
Okay, now we've got kind of like a slew of questions I feel like are in the same vein.
Okay.
And it's all about Daggerheart. So
right.
We've got a question from Justin Times, Quantum Bacon, Dest, and Corral. It's basically, what are your thoughts on Daggers, the Daggerheart system? Any thoughts on covering it on the channel? That's kind of more the... I'm just kind of summing all these questions into one here for time's sake.
So... I don't have a lot of thoughts is maybe the first thing I should say, because I haven't taken enough time to really like dig in to the system. I think the reason is probably twofold. One, my own time. Like I just don't have as much as I'd like to be able to do that and do everything else that I want to do. But two, because I tend to shy away from things until they're complete.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a big, like, let's dive into the Unearthed Arcana stuff. Like, Chris, Treant Monk, has been great at that. And I've done a little bit of it with when I can collab with Will from D&D Shorts or Chris, Treant Monk, where we can, like, hey, let's break this down. It's fun. It's interesting, right? But I don't do a lot of, like, deep dive analysis and, like, this is why this is good. This is why this is not good. I hope this changes in these ways. Because I guess I just kind of feel like, I'd just as soon wait until I have a finished product before I spend too much time analyzing it, because my analysis at the end of the day, like, might be, I don't want to say worthless, but, like, it's going to change.
Sure.
So why spend the time and energy analyzing it now? Now, of course, the counter to that is because so that you can point out to the community that, like, hey, this is really good, or this is too good, or this is really crappy, and, like, and maybe that way we're more likely to get the product that we want.
Sure.
Right? And that's a valid argument, and I feel like other people are doing that already and doing a really good job of it, and I'm going to let them, you know what I mean? The little that I know about Daggerheart, I've really just gleaned from watching other YouTubers. I have not even, like, sat down and watched, like, Matt Mercer and Critical Role talk about it, or play it for that matter. But I have watched Will from D&D Shorts. You know, he's got a couple of videos out now kind of reviewing it, and then he play tested it and he talked about, you know, his ideas and opinions on it, that kind of stuff. So it's all like secondhand knowledge and, you know, based on other people's opinions. And I guess I'm a little bit, what's the word that I would use? Like, I don't even want to say cautiously optimistic, more like
apprehensive.
Apprehensive like, is a good word.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna be for me. I feel like I probably so if there's a spectrum of like crunchiness and like mechanics, and then like TTRPG light rules light systems,
like City of Mist or something.
Sure,
like where it's like more about
a little more.
Yeah.
And let's say Pathfinder is on the crunchiness.
Sure.
And Daggerheart. Now Daggerheart, I know it's a 400-page book. Like, maybe it's not as rules light as people think or even they might claim. But anyways, and D&D's in the middle for sake of argument. Like, I tend to favor the middle, or maybe even more towards Pathfinder type system than one that's a little bit more like, hey, like, that system seems like it's gonna be really taxing on a GM, from what I can tell, because it's a lot of like, hey, like, make it harder now, or like make something cool happen now, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, like, I'm out of ideas.
Yeah.
And like, there's no
how to make this more exciting.
yeah, there's no initiative, right? Or at least not in the traditional sense. It just feels a lot more, in an effort to make it a more story-driven experience, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
You know, they're maybe letting a little bit loose on a lot of the rules, which, again, for some people, that's great.
I see it kind of like, so if you have friends who are new to D&D, or they're asking you about D&D, and they want to just play like on a weekend, like, sure, you can run a one-shot, but inevitably a one-shot becomes a two-shot, a three-shot, a four-shot.
Sure.
It might be the type of game where you're just like casually on a Saturday, hey, do you want to just play for a few hours and figure this out? And it's less intensive than D&D. Right. And maybe that's the goal. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like you, though. I'm a little more in the dark. I'm just, whatever I hear on YouTube is kind of my opinion right now.
I do think that I'll take a solid look at it at some point.
Right.
Whether I actually make content for it or not is a totally different question. If I had a crystal ball, I would probably, if I were a gambling man, I guess I should say, I would probably say that it's less likely that I make Daggerheart content than more likely at some point in the future. Part of that is because of what I've already said. Part of it is because, like, YouTube is my job, and I have a feeling that videos on Daggerheart might do, similar to my Pathfinder videos, do really well at first, but then once I actually start releasing like content, build content for it and stuff, like the videos plummet. The viewership, I should say, plummets. But we'll see. I'll never say never. I think the most likely thing is that I do a video similar to what I did for Pathfinder to say, hey, let's look at this game from the perspective of a D&D veteran, and talk about like the differences and help you understand it. As far as whether I start putting like regular Daggerheart builds into like the weekly video rotation, probably less likely, unless the game takes off and is hugely popular and I'm getting tons and tons of demand, and lots of people being loud and saying, make videos for Daggerheart, make character builds, then I think I'll have to take a look at it. But
I think that makes a ton of sense. Okay, so we had a couple people in the chat call out this question from the Discord and say, like, I hope you get to this. So I'm going to make sure we get to this because we got a couple minutes left here.
Okay.
Question is from Callie Summers. She says, I have a couple of DM questions. One, how do you feel about setting different social encounter DCs for players so that marshals don't have to just stand awkwardly in the back? Basically set the DC so that each player has a similar chance of success. So you can do a strength intimidation check. Pretty hard to imagine a Dex persuasion scenario. I think we've kind of had this at our table from time to time, but presented slightly different.
Right.
Where we've had a DM be like,
how would you solve this?
Right.
Tell me what skill you would use and how you might go about trying to solve this problem. And I like that, but you can hear in my voice that I have reservations too. Like,
let the guy who built the character for being the party face be the party face.
Yeah.
Let the warrior shine in the combat. That's my take, personally, but I'm not opposed to, like, giving everybody an equal shot at every scenario. It just depends on your group, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm a fan of letting the barbarian potentially make an intimidation check using their strength sometimes, because that makes sense, right? And it might mix it up for the barbarian and make them feel like, hey, I can do something else sometimes besides just hit stuff, right? At the same time, the barbarian, the guy or gal who brings a big hulking, strong, great weapon master using, barbarian to the table, I think probably, again, this could vary, talk with your DM, but probably wants to be really good in combat and hit stuff and be strong. And maybe they even want to be kind of a non-charismatic, I'm just good at hitting stuff type character. Maybe that's what they want to role play. Which, now, that said, yeah, in that case, sure, use strength to make an intimidation check. Not a bad idea. My concern is, if there's the person who made the bard with a really high charisma score,
yes,
expertise in persuasion,
built specifically for this.
Yeah, and making them go kind of it doesn't matter that I'm good at this, because everybody else gets a chance to also be good at this thing that I kind of built for. Similar to, we've had conversations about this before, where it's there have been players at our table sometimes where they maybe didn't optimize for combat very well, and you can see them get frustrated in combat because they didn't optimize for combat very well, and then they magically get all of these insane magic items and buffs and things that make them sort of
on par,
really good at combat when they, how do I say this without sounding like a prick? But you get you see what I'm saying.
Roles in the party exist for a reason, right? And part of the enjoyment for some people, not everybody, is really fulfilling that role.
Yeah,
I am the party face. I am the healer. I am the fighter. And then taking that away and being the fighter's really good at being a party face.
Yeah.
Why am I here?
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying.
I think adding some of that kind of stuff once in a while,
right?
Great.
And that goes right into the next question. They said, so how often would you allow this in the game, right?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say once a session.
I think there needs to be this risk of failure for a barbarian making a charisma check. Why are you doing this? Okay, I will let you do it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be hilarious when the politician throws you out of their castle.
Yeah.
And now you're fighting with the guards. That might be a more fun scenario than letting them win the encounter.
And I'm not gonna lower the DC for you,
right?
Because you're a barbarian. When if the DC check is a 15, regardless, it's gonna be a 15. You know what I mean? And I'm not gonna lower it for the barbarian and raise it for the bard. Right. That to me is akin to fudging numbers, or giving a bunch of legendary magic items to somebody who did not build their character to be good in combat. You know what I mean?
To be fair, so Callie in the chat, Callie Summer says, I feel like bards, paladins, and sorcerers have strong options in combat already, but there's no equivalent for marshals in social situations. Sure. And I can kind of see what she's saying.
Sure, but if you build for it, right? Yeah, you could be good in combat as a bard, but you've got to build for it, right? And you don't have. It's not
built in as easily as a fighter getting feats and ASIs every couple of levels.
Depending on what you mean by good in combat, I suppose. If we're talking doing damage,
sure,
right?
We'll just use that because it's the easiest.
Sure.
North Star.
Yeah. If we're talking about doing damage, then yes, bards can be good damage dealers, especially with some multi-classing, especially if you go swords bard, basically, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're probably sacrificing your charisma in that scenario, or at least making it a secondary stat at best, right? Unless you take a hexblade dip, I guess. And so there's a give and take, you know what I mean? And I like that. I like that give and take. I think that it makes character creation interesting. I think it makes gameplay more interesting when everybody just doesn't get to be good at everything.
I would even argue and say it makes role playing more interesting.
Sure.
Right? Because you are kind of forced to lean into your strengths and upplay your weaknesses a little bit.
Yeah. That all of that said, I think I see where you're coming from, and yes, that's true. A paladin is probably going to be better in social situations than a fighter or a bard because they've been forced to take and very encouraged to at least have a decent charisma score, right? Whereas fighters probably innate charisma, right? That's probably their dump stat. Same with barbarians, right? And so then, yeah, you get into social situations, and it's like there's really like I'm just gonna suck, period.
Right.
But maybe like you were saying, own that weakness and make it fun. Like that's something that Preston is really good at, our friend, right? Where he's like trying to grapple with an 8 strength
and then like getting just wrecked.
Yeah, and it never succeeds, right? But he's always got this great idea of what he's going to do. And sometimes like it can be fun to kind of like be the doofus and like try to make a persuasion check and fail. And hopefully you're not playing at a table where everybody's like, dude, like, you idiot, like, you just ruined whatever, you know what I mean?
There's nothing better, I think, in D&D than when you enter a stuffy, like, political, like, king's chamber, and everyone's all infighting or whatever, and then the bard is just, like, messing around, and then you're getting thrown out and chased out of town. That is the ultimate D&D right there. Be fun. It's classic.
But, so, yeah, I'd say, like, pepper opportunities like that in there once in a while. But not to the point where it makes the person who built an eloquence bard so that they could be like this really great party face feel like I guess I might as well have gone swords bard because, you know, or whatever. Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's 6 after.
Oh, man.
I know, this one flew by.
I feel like we squandered your guys' time talking about video games the whole time.
Sorry. They're so fun.
Yeah, they
didn't even. I wanted to, like, somehow bring in Dragon's Dogma, and it didn't even come up. Like, that's how, like, big this conversation has gotten. So.
You like those, like, third-party action-adventure
I do.
That seems to be your jam.
Yeah.
I need to check out Dragon's Dogma though. It's not on PC.
It is on PC. Oh, yeah. Wait a while. Wait until there's a patch or two. Okay. There's some kind of optimization issues right now. I don't know if it would be your type of game because I kind of think of you more as like combat strategy.
Yeah.
Like if there's like a combat game but it involves a strategy element like Civ or something. I feel like that's more your.
The older I get, the more I enjoy turn-based games.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of turn-based games. Next lunch, I'll bring you a list of like the 10 best turn-based.
I want to take my time thinking about everything that I do and weighing all the options rather than having to like make a decision on the fly and be really like dexterous with the controls. That's just a sign of old age is really all it is. But that said, I feel like I've always been that kind of gamer. Almost always been that kind of gamer.
Accepted it a little bit more as you go.
Yeah.
I've noticed that when I don't enjoy a game, it's because I'm lying to myself that I'm gonna like it, and then like halfway through I'm like, this isn't for me. Why am I pretending that I like this game?
That's me with every Elder Scrolls game.
Yeah.
Every single one.
It's not for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to not pretend that I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Anyways, thanks you guys. You're awesome. Love you. Hope you have a fantastic day and week, and thanks for your support.
Yeah. Happy Good Friday. Too.
Really appreciate it. Happy Good Friday for those who celebrate. I'm going to be headed out of town next week, so maybe. I know that you guys represent a small percentage of the total viewership, but just FYI, I'm going to be probably not replying to comments, and I'm going to be pretty scarce on Discord, because I'm going to try my best to really unplug and just be with my family. We're taking a little vacation down to Southern California, so it should be nice for spring break.
Enjoy it and get the nice weather and the sunshine.
Yeah.
Because it's been rainy and snowy.
What
the heck? Snowing. Yeah. It's spring.
I know, but
in your video that's coming out, you're like, it's springtime. It's so nice. And then it snows.
You're looking outside
going, like, what?
No, it's not.
It's pouring rain.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.